Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going over gaming news from March 17th through the 23rd. I did plan on doing this earlier, but I had some things came up. If you're interested, you can take a look at my community tab at Gaming Garbage 22 on YouTube. But yeah, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about the director of Star Wars Jedi Survivor creating a new studio, and it comes with a puzzle. I'm going to save that toward the end. And then also we're going to be talking about a video game company having AI tools trying to make a game which failed horribly. We're going to talk about that and what that means for the industry. And I think that was actually quite a big one. We're also going to talk about Tekken 8 having issues, along with the Apex Legends North American Finals having some hacking problems during the stream, which the guy was lucky that they were streaming. We're going to talk, too, with an update of Sony halting some production of something. We're also going to talk about how much stupid money Monopoly Go made. We're going to have a little update of Payday 3, which came out last year. We're going to talk, too, about a new subscription on Minecraft. And then we're going to have an update with Larian Studios of what their future holds. And then we're also going to talk about Dragon Dogma's 2 microtransactions. And this is to, talk about the microtransactions and what they are, but also talk about how I feel like the gaming, the community on YouTube and Twitch are overreacting. Again, it's not something I enjoy, having microtransactions in a single-player game. I understand that, but we have some past history, plus with what else is in the industry, and honestly, this is the type of nicer microtransactions that we can have. So let's go ahead and dig into it. Of course, folks, if you like, you can always follow me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube, and you can also follow me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. Later this year, I'll be also having a Discord server, which will allow us to be able to communicate. You guys can get updates, talk amongst yourselves, share memes, that kind of thing, but also have a space where you guys can actually game across some of your, cross-platform games. And let's be honest, sometimes the in-game chat is just awful audio quality, and we all wish we had a place where we could chat with each other in a nice, crisp, clean kind of audio. So that's what the Discord channel is going to be for. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the video game that was made by AI completely failed. It did not work. This was made by Keys Studios, and they attempted a 2D game using generative AI. Now, this was about 400 separate AI tools that they used, and all of the tools worked together to try to generate and create this video game. But it ultimately showed that we can't replace human talent, that the human talent's still got to be there. The AI is not up to snuff being able to do this with all of the things of collaborating and working together and overall seeing the arcing vision and all of that. So far, AI can't replace that. Also, too, this was more of an experiment, and it'll never be released to the public. So this game will never see the light of day. Maybe if we ever got some leaks or something out of Keywords Studios, we'd see something like this. But first, what is Keywords Studios? So Keywords is one of the biggest third-party outsourced companies in the world. So what that means is that they basically help other companies make their games. And under certain projects or certain renderings or audios or whatever, and Keywords has been around actually for quite some time, a few decades, and they've been acquiring studios and different businesses for a long time, for 30 years. They're still buying companies, by the way, so they're not hurting for money. But they basically help with different games, and that's basically what they focused on. And so what have they worked on before? Well, they've worked on Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, or maybe even the originals, or it could be kind of the remakes. I'm not exactly sure. It wasn't perfectly clear in the article. They've also worked on Breath of the Wild. They've worked on Halo Infinite, League of Legends, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. They've worked on a total of 156 games so far, and some of these being pretty big titles. Now, they're available for hire, basically, to help with some of the work, and a lot of games are complicated enough now it can't really be finished by one studio. As you see some of these, these are some pretty big titles that we know and love, but even like Baldur's Gate 3 had to outsource some of that material so that they could get there. And the thing that's crazy is just how much they've been working on different games. And 156 is a ton to work under your belt. They have 13,000 employees according to their LinkedIn. They have 70 different studios around the world, and they're in 25 different countries. So they are literally all over the place. This is a pretty big conglomerate. I mean, if we thought Embracer Group was big, these guys are also a massive company, except they're not holding the IPs. They're just working on stuff. And so they kind of get to sit on the sidelines, and when a game goes bad or when something isn't rendered right, they don't necessarily get the blame. It's the publisher and the main developer studio. And even if these guys didn't do something perfect, they don't get blamed for it. But if they weren't good, they wouldn't be also working on 156 games so far. So their reputation precedes themselves. Now, back to this AI stuff. They've been working on making AI tools for a while, and they want to get it good enough to be able to increase the workload of a company. So instead of having to hire extra employees, they want to be able to help those companies increase the workload that they can do with the same amount. And these AI tools are basically designed for that. And also to work in conjunction with each other and also with other devs, human devs. Ultimately, too, this would lower the cost of services. Maybe not just necessarily for them, but like if they started selling some of these AI tools, which we already know that's kind of happening around in the industry, like Microsoft is doing this on a business level with like Copilot and some other AI tools for businesses to use as third party, just to help with efficiency, to be able to help with, again, workload. And when you can make the cost cheaper, you're more competitive against your competitors. Because it's like, hey, we can do just as good a work or close to it for actually less money. And a lot of people will go that way, even in just taking a look at our own spending habits. We don't usually buy top of the line. Somewhere mid-grade is just fine for saving, 20 or 50% or whatever we're buying or purchasing. Also, this ultimately means that this will have layoffs. Again, we've already seen a lot of layoffs last year. We've seen entire sectors of Q&A for certain companies and publishers just wiped out. But you can kind of see these as your Q&A guys. And again, if they can do it cheaper than what it takes a normal QA team, then yeah, most people are going to go to them. So this is kind of a warning, folks, that this is not just, oh, hey, the game failed, yay, we win. This is, oh, wow, this is an experiment that did fail, but they are still continuing to work on these tools, continuing to work with AI, and eventually it's going to get there to where it's going to start taking over people's jobs. And we've already seen that with art design or concept artists. We've already seen other companies too trying just generative AI. We see a lot of this now with AI shorts, with the voices. We hear that all of the time. Probably about half of every single short is actually AI generated voice there. And then also we're seeing this in thumbnails all over the place. So whether you're looking at car stuff, gaming stuff, home remedy stuff, whether you're taking a look at marketing and trading with stocks and ETFs, I mean, just the generative thumbnails are everywhere, and the tools are free, at least to start. And if you want better ones, you pay for them on a monthly subscription fee. And yeah, these companies are making money, including Microsoft, like with Copilot. They have a Copilot that's free, which basically anyone that's been using it has also been helping Copilot, or back in the day, Chat GPT-4 get better, and now they're finally able to implement it on a commercial and business level and help companies increase their workload. And so yeah, whether we like it or not, ultimately the services are going to become cheaper, and it's going to be cheaper for an AI tool or a program to do it than for you. Now, some jobs that are physically intensive, hey, we don't have robotics yet, thank goodness, but hey, that's eventually coming too, maybe by the time I retire in another 20 or 30 years. But at least with the digital space, AI is just starting to take over, and we know that 350 million jobs are looking to be actually removed within just the next decade, according to Goldman Sachs, just with AI replacing those digital jobs. So if you're an analyst, I mean, and honestly, folks, if you're in a job that involves a computer on a regular basis, I would be concerned. Because maybe it's not today, maybe it's not next year, but, can you retire at the job you're currently doing? Because AI is not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. And honestly, if you're not sure, maybe you want to start changing your vocation now so that you can have a more experience and higher up on the rungs of the ladder to retirement before everybody else figures it out. And it's never a bad idea either to just redo your resume every once in a while. I already did. It's ready to go. This also is going to allow not just cheaper services, but increase more layoffs in the industry, as we already talked about, but also it's going to help indie developers. So they're going to be able to drastically increase their workload. Maybe they're doing a game by themselves, maybe they got a team of 5 or a team of 10. If they're able to use AI generative tools to at least do some of the kind of digital grunt work, that's going to save time and money and also increase workload. And so we can maybe see some of these indie developers actually make some pretty good games or pretty big games compared to what they normally could. And, if you spend a few $1,000s for some of these tools, or maybe even 10,000 as part of your budget, the amount of workload that they can produce back is going to be pretty substantial, even by today's standards. And in another 3 or 5 years, as it's going to be drastically increased from where it is today. Just seeing the change in ChatGPT 4 from when it started last year, maybe 2022, just to where it is today, it's just leaps and bounds, folks. It's pretty incredible. So eventually, this is just going to revolutionize the gaming industry. And not just gaming, but any type of industry that has digitization. Anything with a computer, anything with programs. But with the game development specifically, it's going to, help with, it's going to revolutionize concept art, level design, coding, QA, etc. And maybe this is why a lot of the QAs were actually let go, is because we started having this push with AI and the tools were starting to get good enough when we were starting to hear about that in 21 and 22. And by the end of 22, we were starting to have some pretty good QA layoffs that continued into 23. And so, if you can just have programs run through your game, 5,000, 20,000 times over, playing it, finding bugs, logging everything while you're sleeping, why wouldn't you do that as a company? It's going to save you a ton of money and also be a lot more efficient. So people are ultimately still needed. Yes, absolutely. That's what this experiment has proved. But lower jobs are going to get replaced. And, eventually as AI continues to ratchet up and improve, because again, these are learning machines, folks, just like you and I, but the rate at which they can learn is just hundreds times faster. Eventually, those lower rungs are continued to get kind of snatched up by AI. And since they're cheaper, they don't need sick leave, they don't need to be paid, they don't need time off. What are companies going to do? You tell me. Also, we got to see in other news, Tekken 8 has some hackers. Now, every game kind of has hackers, but this one's kind of comical. So some people are using the actual microtransactions in the game to help them cheat and win. Now, it's kind of funny because you can get hats, on your character, and there's a myriad of different types of hats you can pay for just a few bucks. But what's hilarious is that some people are finding exploits where they can make the hat extra large in the game that they're wearing, and then the hat can cover their entire character on the screen, and then the other player can't see what's coming, and so they can't block, they don't know where to attack or anything, and so the other player's blind, so the person that's hacking gets to win because the hat's in the way of the screen, which I just think is pretty funny. Again, this is not fair. I hate hackers. If you have to do that, you're not a real gamer. But just the level of trolling on people, it's just kind of killing Tekken 8. And this is why we have anti-hacking software, which we're going to get into this too. But this is why we have, anti-cheat. This is why we have, anti-whatever else. This is why, too, we pay Sony and Xbox to be able to, pay just for the capability to play online. Because, again, we had a ton of hackers. And, PlayStation used to be free for a long time, but eventually they caved too, because if people can't have fun on your game, generally speaking, because other people are cheating all the time, then, you're going to lose a lot of your consumer base, because most of the consumer base aren't hackers, and if the hackers are basically going to win all the time, what's the point? You're going to go over to some other console, right? And so that's why Sony had to step up, over a decade ago to say, hey, we're going to, basically start charging you for multiplayer because we have to stop these hackers. And now it's like 70, 80 bucks, which is crazy, a month. Yeah, I just thought that was kind of crazy. In other news, this leads into the next thing with the NA finals for Apex Legends. This was held not too long ago, but 2 players on the same team got hacked in real time while one of the matches was running, which was insane. So during the match, the teams are playing, okay, they're whatever, and one of them suddenly gets walls, where they're able to look through digitally all of the walls and have every enemy player, or maybe even co-op player, or teammate, depends what you get. But they were able to see everybody on their screen. So they knew where people were, they knew which direction they were going. Everything was done in real time, and the guy suddenly like, guys, I can't shoot. I'm being hacked. And it literally shows up on his stream in the bottom left corner that somebody is actually hacking him. It shows the account name, which is wild, and that he's being hacked on his computer. And it's like, what? Are you serious? And literally, a bit later, someone else on his team, same team, ends up being hacked. And he's got aimbot. It shows that aimbot is basically turned on. He's also streaming. And it's like, oh, I can't shoot. I got aimbot. I was going to get disqualified. And so these people are literally rendered useless on the team. And as you guys know, you can't have a ton of people on Apex Legends, so losing 2 people on your team, that is a massive hit. And so the people running this ended up having to shut down the entire tournament, and basically they're going to have it shut down until they can figure out exactly what was exploited and how they can fix it. But yeah, somebody, third party from the people streaming and playing in the tournament, got into their computers, likely through the Easy Anti-Cheat, which is the brand, and cracked it, possibly. That's not confirmed yet, but was able to start putting hack software on their computers and enabling it in the game while they were playing, folks. This is crazy. And so, since it was streamed, they have proof, they're not going to get disqualified or banned or whatever, but it's possible there was a RCE exploit that was being used to be able to do this. So, EZ has a problem, okay? The people running the tournament, they have a problem because they can't run it until this is fixed. But also, this can work further into just EA games, because EA basically uses EZ Anti-Cheat for a lot of their games that are multiplayer. And so, maybe don't play EA stuff for a while if you're on PC. Now, it'd be a lot harder to actually hack through console and also through Sony or like Nintendo or something like that, because there's a whole nother setup of third party that they have to work through in order to hack through everything, and that's going to be more difficult. It's easier just to be able to go through PC and just directly attack Easy Cheat and use a CRE exploit. But CRE exploits have been around for quite a while on PC, and this can be a problem because it's full access. Now, the reason this is dangerous is because anti-cheat software has to have direct access into your computer through the firewall, through your antivirus, whatever, through all of your protective layers, right? And that's what it asks for every time you're playing a game. Sure, and if you're ever able to actually crack that, that would be horrible. Again, it's easier on PC. It can be done through consoles as well, but it's more likely a PC issue. That's just a general trend. But yeah, this is where we kind of need to be, weary of this, because if you're able to crack through the anti-cheat software, well, then you can just tunnel right into just the mainframe of someone's computer or console or whatever, and just start doing whatever you want. Start changing passwords, start stripping, your credit cards and other personal sensitive information that you save through your web browser or whatever. This is why I never save anything to anything. And when I do see it on there, we take it off. We actually just did that tonight, my wife and I, after watching renting a movie. But it's just wild. It's just wild what's going on. And then there can also be other software installed. And so really the ultimately way to protect against this is if you think you've been hacked or been offended with some type of exploit like this, you have to do a complete wipe of your computer and a clean install of your operating system and then reinstall everything that you had on there. And that is the only guaranteed way to actually get any possible malicious software off your computer, which sucks. Yes, that's going to take a ton of time, but otherwise, buy a new computer. So, I mean, it's up to you guys on what you would like to do. But yeah, this is why anti-cheat software can certainly be dangerous, and this has been brought up before. And this isn't just through your specific device that's been hacked, because if you're hooked up through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, it can affect all of those devices too. So think about your controllers, think about your headsets, think about your Wi-Fi and all of the devices connected into your Wi-Fi. I mean, the list goes on, folks. Oh my gosh, like the list goes on. So it's really important to really, take some protection on this. And yes, some of the things are an inconvenience, but good God, if you're just not hooked up or you're not even playing some of these games, like I probably wouldn't play Apex for a while until you can actually get some confirmation that this stuff has been figured out and fixed. Just, it's worth the inconvenience than the total trouble you could get. Again, it's very minimal, very minor, but hey, the risk is yours to take. It's up to you, folks. Something too, we got to see that Dragon Dogmas 2 is just getting kind of review bombed. And yes, for part of the reason I understand, there's microtransactions. Now, we're going to go over these microtransactions. We're going to talk about what Capcom has done in the past, and we're going to talk about how this actually affects the game. So here we go. And then also, once we're done with microtransactions, we're going to talk about another issue that Dragon's Dogma has, which is poor performance, at least on PC. And it does sound like it's actually on Xbox and PlayStation as well, but not as bad. So we're going to talk about that too. But first, the microtransactions. So when we have review codes, all this stuff. Hey, the game looks great, wonderful. Well, when the game actually released, there was this DLC list. And people got to see that the DLC list was actually microtransactions. So again, there was about a couple of dozen different items that you could get in the game. These were things like fast travel points, rift crystals, hiring pawns, buying special items, appearance changes, revival items, special camping kit that weighs less, one-person prison keys, etc. Okay? These ranged anywhere from $1 to $5. And none of these actually needed to be purchased. This was not like a pay-to-win kind of thing, right? You didn't need any of this. Most of this stuff you can actually find in the game if you just play it. You can work toward it. You can also work on buying just using in-game currency or rewards or whatever, finishing quests and stuff or missions, and be able to get this gear for yourself. Now, there were a few things that were kind of off a little bit. The special camping kit, well, that one actually weighs less than the others that you can get in the game. So that kind of sucks. And we do have a weight limit or carry capacity for you and your team with your pawns or your companions. And that kind of sucks because it's like, hey, this weighs a little less, you can carry a little more, but probably not a huge difference. I didn't actually look up the numerical values, but that just seems kind of cheesy and kind of sucky. The other thing is that, like, if you wanted some of the audio tracks, you can basically buy that. So this wasn't included, I don't think, in any of the super fancy editions. This is just a microtransaction that you can pay for if you would like to, if you'd like to get it. And this wasn't just soundtrack stuff outside of the game. No, this was soundtracks that you could basically unlock in the game to be able to use and access to actually play different songs or tracks while you're playing the game. So that's kind of a cheesy move too. Why didn't they just have that available for players? Instead, they have it behind a paywall. So that kind of sucks. But most of the stuff, you can actually find, consumables in the world, and so you don't have to pay for any of these. Some of these consumables also have limitations on how many can be used until you get to like New Game Plus or something like that. So, again, it's not like you really need any of these. If people want to, they're available, but they're not really going to affect or change your game, the fact that they're there. It's not like they made the game around you spending microtransactions, right? Or buying microtransactions. They made the game, and then they said, if you'd like, you can make the game a little easier. That's what they did. Now, in the past, they've done that before. We got to see that with Resident Evil 4 remake when they remade, remastered that one. That came out just last year. We got the game 3-4 weeks later. We got a whole new store that came out, basically a microtransaction store that had different items or consumables you could buy directly with your own personal money, and also like damage upgrades and that kind of thing for different guns. And again, I kind of thought that was kind of shoddy. The game was great as it was, but again, it's not like you have to. The game was made in its entirety. They weren't made around the microtransactions, which is nice. And it's not like Capcom hasn't done this before on a regular basis. They've done this with Devil May Cry, and they've done this also with Monster Hunters, and they've done it with several of the Resident Evil games. And now they're doing it with Dragon's Dogma. So, again, it's like, yes, the microtransactions are a problem, I agree, but I do think some of the channels are totally going overboard on this with saying that, hey, microtransactions shouldn't be in our game. Yes, I agree, but again, these are more of an afterthought. These aren't live service microtransactions. You know what I mean? Where the whole point of the game is to grind so you can get skins or gear or guns or whatever. And hey, if you want to get there faster, ding, 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 to buy our stuff so you can get there a little faster, or even open up more possibilities so you can stash more stuff in your digital closet, which you're never going to use, folks. You're not even going to use 99% of that stuff, and in most cases, it doesn't transfer over anyway, so why you would buy microtransactions, I have no idea. I would kind of see that as more of like a mobile game thing, but again, mobile game is just a time consumer, just a time filler. You're not really invested in that anyway, but to each their own. But Dragon Dogma 2, from what I've seen, the gameplay is really solid, the combat is really solid, but again, this is not a game that is made for everybody, so I suggest doing a little bit of your research, watch some of the playthroughs, see what some channels have to say about it, like Force Gaming. Honestly, the gameplay is pretty dang good, and people are praising it, but they're freaking out over the microtransactions. The other thing that's plaguing this game is that there's also performance issues. So the optimization is not overly good on PC. Now, talking to oh man, what's his channel? Some Ordinary Gamer, I think is his channel name, Mudahar. He's actually a pretty good channel for some information if you're ever interested. But yeah, he's talking about how he's got an NVIDIA 4090 graphics card, and he's having trouble maintaining 30 frames in some of the spots in the game. And this is before even turning on like the extra fancy stuff, like extra luster or on items or ray tracing in the game. None of that stuff's turned on. This is just the basic game with none of that fancy stuff, and he's still having trouble maintaining 30 frames a second on his super fancy PC that is like a few $1,000. So he said it's probably 2-3 years old of equipment, but all of that should be able to run the game pretty smoothly, and this just shows how bad the optimization is for the game. Now for Xbox and for PlayStation, I've heard there are some optimization or performance issues with the frame rate and with the game and stuff, but PC of course always gets the worst kick of it in the stuff, and they're just having a heck of a time. He even had a frame rate counter on in real time while he was playing, and even just walking around just some very generic kind of forest and rock formations. I mean, he was going anywhere from 30 frames to 75 frames a second, which was crazy. And Some Ordinary Gamer, he was just saying it's like, this is horrible, and he's tried all of the stuff that he can on his end with his graphics cards, with his CPU, make sure nothing else is running in the background, making sure he's trying to optimize his settings in the game, and he's like, this frame rate is still all over the place. So that's also a very frustrating thing for a lot of PC owners. And I would like to point out, too, that this is why Starfield was locked at 30 frames per second. Now, a lot of people complained about that, but it's important to understand that this is why Starfield was locked in the first place, because it can be worse if you're going from 30 to 70 frames and back again over and over, constantly getting these kind of jittery or kind of slowing down of movement and motion, especially in combat. That is brutal, folks, if you've never experienced that. And sometimes it's just better just to have it locked, because it's consistent. You can anticipate, you can kind of engage or discern what is going to be happening in the next half a second or whatever, because you can tell all of the frames and maybe how far something should move or shift depending on what's going on. When your frame rate is from 30 to 75 frames, that's freaking insane. It makes it a lot harder to adapt and to compensate for things happening in the game, especially for combat. And that's why some of these actually cap at 30. Now, this gets me into my next thing, is we're starting to run into a problem in the gaming industry where we want to eat our cake and have it too. Now, once you have eaten your cake, you also can't have it anymore, right? Because you ate it, it's gone. Now, what we're trying to do in the gaming industry is like, oh, we want 4K at 60 frames, but we want it to run perfect. And folks, 99% of the PC gamers out there, and most of us that have consoles, all of us that have consoles actually, we can't get that unless we pay over $10,000 for a PC. And I'm not even kidding, because if we're having NVIDIA 4090 graphics cards that are a couple of years old, not being able to keep up to maintain 30 frames at all times in a big game like this, that's in 4K and all this other fancy stuff, there's no way in hell anyone else is going to be doing that either. Basically, 4090s are some of the top of the line. These are $1,500 minimum, all the way up to over $2,000 for the card, depending on what type you get. There's different editions, there's different iterations, there's optimized AI, whatever. I've been out of it a really long time, but you can look into that type of stuff if you'd like. But this is where it kind of gets frustrating for me, is that I would rather have a performance mode, which I think would have done Dogma 2 some good, just like what we had in Elden Ring. So in Elden Ring, it's only in 1080p, but I think they had a patch later where it upped it to 4K if you'd like, and they added this after, and oh my word, folks, playing it on Xbox and turning that quality mode on, I was getting maybe 20 frames a second. It was really bad. Maybe I should showcase that sometime and actually kind of talk about this a little bit more in depth. But that was really brutal. And I would rather, again, have just the consistent frames. And I'm not sure what Dragon's Dogma is going to do. They're going to take some time to figure it out or whatever. And maybe they will kind of put in some type of performance mode. Excuse me, so people can stay capped at like 30 frames or 40 frames or whatever. Or maybe you'll be able to set that yourself. Some games have that too. But we're getting to a point where it's like most of us don't possess the money where it's going to matter to have 4K. Now, is 4K nice? Absolutely. But I think Elden Ring also proved that the game can look utterly amazing in 1080p. And in most cases, most of us don't have a big enough TV to really tell the difference that, from 1080p to 4K. Because most people thought that Elden Ring was made in 4K when it was really 1080p. And most people couldn't tell the difference. And these are including people that had, thousands of dollars for their fancy setup for their PC or their fancy TV or whatever, and they couldn't tell. Unless your TV is starting to get to be like 60, 70 inches, you literally can't tell the difference between 1080p and 4K. Now, some of you are maybe special and can actually tell, but that's a very small portion of the population. And so realistically, this 4K stuff is just starting to become a problem. And again, you can't eat your cake and have it too. And so I'm going to be talking about this in a new State of Gaming that's going to come out maybe later this month or maybe into next month in April, called 4K The Pursuit of Happiness, where it's just kind of dragging down the industry. It's creating more trouble. It's also probably frustrating more people, including these developers that are trying to make these games and optimize stuff and whatever. And it infinitely also makes it more frustrating for hard drive space. Some of us are wondering why the frick the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection is, 50 or 60 gigs, and it's because it's got a 4K overlay for the resolution, with really no upgrading to the textures. Well, some of them are. Some of them are upgraded textures, which is nice, but also none of the models are upgraded, or level design isn't changed really. It's basically the same with a 4K overlay for resolution. And then nothing was optimized, and so the file size is freaking huge, when it shouldn't be. So on to the rest of the news. This is just the little bits here that I had left. We found out Sony is going to be temporarily halting production of their PSVR 2. They're basically turning into paperweights and they're not selling. And this includes after having some discounts of $50 to try to help move these products. But again, their launch wasn't very good. We've talked about this before earlier last year. And just how frustrating this is. Just like, hey, these are the games that are coming, and most of them we don't really care about because they're experiences, they're not video games. And we would rather have experiences because the experiences we already had with the PlayStation 4. Again, we're talking getting close to like 10 years now when the PlayStation 4 came out. Whoop-de-freaking do. It's like we already had some, experiences there. We want full games. That's what we wanted then. And some of these games still, they are just not big enough. They're just not enticing enough for the price tag that they have. Plus spending, $500+ for your PSVR 2. And with the discounts that we got to see during Black Friday and also earlier this year, they're just not selling. And so it's gotten so bad that these are stacking up in the warehouses now and they're not moving and they can't sell them in the stores, so they're actually, quote, temporarily halting production. No, they have no idea how long that's going to be. It's just going to dictate how fast that current stuff actually makes, how fast it actually moves. So far, they've made 2 million units, which is what they actually expected to sell at launch, and they're just not moving. So, man, that's a bummer for Sony. Also, in other news, Monopoly Go has made how much in 10 months? Just take a guess. $2 billion. $2 billion through microtransactions. This is why I hate microtransactions, because, hey, Monopoly Go can be a fun game. I'm not refuting that, but I would rather have $2 billion be sunk into a game like Dragon's Dogma 2 or Elden Ring or, Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, just imagine, folks, $2 billion in 10 months. This is insane. That company is making so much freaking money. I'm sure they're going to further monetize more crap or maybe even raise the price because they have so much freaking demand. And we're starting to see some of the talent, too, in some of these other studios saying, hey, I'm going to go work for a mobile game store. Because if they get it right, the amount of money is insane, and I'm going to have some major job security. Now, the problem with a lot of these games is that in the mobile market, they don't last for very long. They maybe last a year or a couple of years, and then they're kind of done. And then, well, your developers got to make something else with basically the same addicting ideas for selling microtransactions. And so that's kind of crazy. I'm not sure. But me personally, I wouldn't want to be a part of a project like that. I'd rather help make Jedi Survivor or Red Dead Redemption 2 or something like that. I want to be proud of something. It wouldn't just be about making money for me. I would like to enjoy actually creating something and bringing fun and entertainment and stress relief to the gaming community. But yeah, that's crazy, $2 billion. In other news, Payday 3, it's been a major failure. They got about 300 people playing now compared to 20,000 playing Payday 2 on Steam charts. That is wild. Also, the CEO is stepping down / fired. Now, some headlines say fired. When you actually start reading into the articles, it says that he is actually personally stepping down. But, if I had a choice, if they came to me and said, hey, you're going to be fired, I'd be like, can I just step down? That would be great. I would love to do that. Because I think that's also what happened to Ryan at Sony, is just, hey, I'm suddenly stepping down, things aren't going very good, and we're going to get a new guy in April. Hopefully he's going to turn things around for Sony. But I've heard some rumblings that are just rumors right now, so I'm going to wait for something a little more concrete, and I'll share that with you guys later. But yeah, things aren't looking very good for them. But yeah, Payday 3, they goobered it up big time. And I don't think they'll ever bring back Payday 3. So now they have two options. It's like, well, we can work on continuing to make content for where the players are so that we can actually make more money, or we can try to fix Payday 3, or just drop it and move on to Payday 4. I don't know. What a bummer. I was actually excited for Payday 3, but what kicked me out of the game was as soon as I pull it up, it's like, ooh, please make a login. Birch, I'm already in my freaking Xbox. Let me just play as my Xbox self and avatar and just call it a day. Just let me play the game. I don't want to log into some other third party when I already got to log in. If you make too many steps for me as a guy that's busy and tired well, I'm just going to quit and move on to something else because there's freaking competition out there. If I'd rather play something else, that's where I'm going to go, right? And that's where my money's going too. Just like Elden Ring DLC. Frick yeah, folks, I'm so excited. I know I got a ways to go, but that's coming in June. We're going to showcase that here right on the channel. Also, Minecraft has a content subscription. It's going to be $4 a month, and what is this going to get you? It's going to get you access to content that are created by other creators. And this is going to be skins, texture packs, etc. Basically, you're going to have access to 150 at a time. Plus, you're going to be getting basically like a character skin free monthly. And then, yeah, you're basically paying access for content created stuff when it used to be flipping free, folks. I don't even entirely understand that, but hey, that's what they're doing. Good for them. So they're doing a Roblox thing instead of, I can't believe this, instead of just giving it to you for free, now they're monetizing access. Isn't that disgusting? That freaking sucks. But ooh boy, you get a character skin once a month that they get to choose for you. That's great. Selection will also periodically change. So they're not even giving you the entire catalog anymore. They're just saying, look, here's 150 between skins, texture packs, etc. If you'd like to buy something, great. If not, just wait for, the next batch of 150, and we'll just go from there at $4 a month. Now, is that pretty cheap? Sure it is. $4 is nothing. I mean, coffee is $8. Getting a meal for yourself is somewhere between $9 and $13 at like Taco Bell or Wendy's or whatever. I mean, it's stupid, folks. A pack of cigs is basically $10, $11 now. $4 a month is nothing. Okay, you're not even going to feel that. But it's just the fact that they're saying, hey, pay for access every freaking month. No thanks. I'd rather just have the key to my property and just walk in whenever I want, instead of just constantly having to ask for my key card for the month so that I can just walk in and then buy more stuff. I mean, think about it, folks. It's kind of dumb. And then people are like, well, what about Costco? You got to pay for a membership every year. Folks, it's $5 a month. And the amount of money my wife saved a month shopping at Costco, even comparing it to Winco, our cheapest store, and Walmart, we are saving dozens of dollars every month just going to Costco. It's great. We've cut our bill probably by about 15 to 20% every month just shopping there, which is wonderful. So anyway, if it makes sense, sure. But we're not just gaining access to the store. We're gaining access to wholesale prices. That's the whole point, folks. That's the whole point. This, you're just gaining access. It's not cheaper. It's just gaining access. It's so stupid. Also, we got a thing from Larian Studios saying that they're done with Baldur's Gate 3, so there's no DLC, and they're done with the IP. They're going to totally move away from Baldur's Gate and D&D and move on to something else completely new and different. They said that they were starting to make DLC, but it just didn't feel like it was them. They were doing it because it was expected. They're just expected to make a Baldur's Gate 4, and they just want to do something different, and they want to branch out, which this honestly has really served them well in the past, along with like From Software and some of the other studios that we absolutely love. And so I'm kind of curious to see what Larian's going to come up with, because they won Game of the Year for a good reason. And, maybe we'll hear about a new early access in a few years. And then that'll be a few years until the game actually releases. So maybe in 6 years we'll actually see what they're working on. Or it'll get released. So as far as I can see, that's all I had for you guys today. Again, you can always follow me too at GamingGarbage22 at YouTube, and also over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. If you'd like, you can leave me a whisper at Twitch if you want to send me a private message for whatever. And then too, don't forget, folks, I have multiple playlists because we do State of Gaming, we do gaming news, we do playthroughs of stuff. We're trying to review whatever we can when I have access to the money, right? Because life's expensive. And yeah, there's plenty of stuff to check out there with the playlist. Also, too, liking and subbing is a great way to help support the channel for free. I always appreciate it when you folks do that. Thank you. But also share the content, too. Share it with people that are going to enjoy this. And I know it's not as fancy and whatever, but I really do care about the gaming industry because it affects you. It honestly does. And it affects me too. And I know with some of the stuff I get pissed about, I know it pisses other people off too. And so for those of you that enjoy the content and just the genuineness of the channel, thanks for subbing. For those of you that are new, welcome to the Gaming Garbage community, because it's time to figure out the trash in this industry and to help you guys not get scammed, because I've been scammed a few times in my day, and it gets old. It really does get old. So with that, folks, hopefully you guys are doing well. Remember too to spend time with with your family and stuff, because people don't last forever. Eventually they're gone, and that kind of happened to me this week, and that was just tough. It was just tough. It could have been worse. It can always be worse. But we kind of knew something was up, and, well, it was time to say goodbye. So that was tough. So, yeah, spend time, manage your time well, and maybe you're tired and stuff. And I get that, but, the relationships that we have, they don't last forever. So with that, folks, I'll see you on the next one.